Thank you for joining the American Crochet Association and following our Granny Square Table Runner Crochet Along Challenge. I'm Selena Baca, founder, host, lead educator with the ACA. And in this video chat today, I'm going to be going over part 2 of our Crochet Along Challenge. Now, before I get started, I do want to give a huge thanks and shout out to our American Crochet Association members because today's show is sponsored in part by them. Now, their American Crochet Association memberships help us to build courses, workshops, and training programs to support the crochet community and to host fun crochet along challenges and episodes just like this one. If you are not already part of the American Crochet Association membership, you can learn more about that and get started today when you click on the link in the show notes section right now or after this live chat. If you are watching live or on the replay, either way, it's the same great fun. Come on over and comment on this video to say hello and just to let me know where you're viewing from. I am streaming this video live on YouTube today, so if you're viewing this on any other platform, just come on over and follow along as if it's the live, and I promise you're going to have the same great fun. Now, after I outline part 2 of this Crochet Along Challenge, I'm going to be giving some shout outs to anybody here who's part of the live audience. And I'm going to be going over any questions, comments, feedback that they might have as they're here live. So don't be shy. Now, again, today we're going to be going over part 2 of our American Crochet Association Crochet Along Challenge. Our members voted for the pattern they wanted to follow, and they chose the Granny Square Table Runner. So in this part today, we're going to be talking about size and dimension of that project. And I do have some tips and tricks that I'm going to be pulling from the learning path, just so our members can go back, make sure that as they're building their crochet knowledge, they're applying that to really broaden their crochet skills as well. So not only is this a fun and functional project, but we're really trying hard to make sure that it's a great skill building project. Okay? So today, part 2. If you haven't already watched part 1, go back and watch part 1 before you completely follow along with everything that I'm going to say here, because it's going to make so much more sense. There was some homework in part 1 to include what yarn you're going to choose and just some things to try, some things to swatch before you dive into your finished project. Okay? So I do have some extra tips that I wanted to pack into part 1, but I thought, I'm going to pause and I'm going to hold it here. Okay, so again, I feel like part 1 is really going to fill in a lot of gaps for you if you haven't already watched it. So part 2, Granny Square Table Runner. I have mine right here. Got my finished table runner right here. So this is kind of the model that I keep kind of pointing to. But today we're going to be talking about size and dimension, because this particular pattern does give some very specific instructions, but it also says that, hey, you can use any yarn you want. You can make this any dimension that you want. So that's what I want to talk about today. So as you're going over this part, I want to refer you to a few aspects of the learning path, specifically the pattern reading section. So if you're unfamiliar with how to read charts, if you're unfamiliar with how to pair maybe chart instructions together with written instructions, that's a really great lesson for you to go back and kind of review to help you with this section here. There's also some bits in that to help you with more intermediate level instructions like repeats. And some of this pattern actually kind of uses those intermediate level repeat kind of, characters. So that will just help you to understand those repeat sections if you're not already familiar with them. Also, another learning path course to brush up on and review would be sizing essentials, because that's what this part is all about. It's all about understanding gauge. It's about understanding size so that you can create fabric size that you're looking for. So on a small scale today, I wanted to talk about how you can craft a table runner of your choosing based on the yarn that you're using. So a really easy way to do that is to just make one square. Okay, so just following the pattern instructions just to create that one square. And it's a square, so it's going to be the same measurement by width and by height. And as a matter of fact, those two things are interchangeable because it's a square. That's the great thing about this project. So what we're going to do is you've chosen your yarn, you know where your colors are going to be applied and all those things. So you're literally just going to measure that one square. And that's going to give you not only the width, but again, we're going to be stacking those squares to create length. So wherever you're going to be putting your table runner, let's say you're going to be putting it on your dining room table. Do you want it to sit on the table? Do you want it to have some overhang? How much overhang do you want? That's entirely up to you. So whatever space you're putting this in, you're going to measure that space, okay? And then you're going to measure your square, and you're going to determine how many of those squares you need to make to fit in the exact space that you're looking for. So here's a basic example. You've measured your granny square. Let's say it's 4.5 inches. So that one square is 4.5 inches. Well, your table, let's say it is 60 inches. Okay, and you don't want it to overhang. You want it to fit on your table. So you want it to be less than 60 inches. So let's just say you decide to make 10 squares because that's 45 inches. 4.5, that's one square times 10. 10 squares of 4.5 inches. It should give you about 45 inches of length. Now, remember, this project does have a border on it. So you do want to account for that, okay? Now, the border, as per the pattern, is only 3 rounds of work. So it's not adding a whole lot of extra width or length, but it is adding a little bit. So just make sure that as you're crafting the number of granny squares that you need, that you do remember that there is a border. Now, the beautiful thing about the border, I'll get into this in that section, but I will say this for this particular part now, is that this is also something that you can get really creative with. Maybe you only want 1 round for the border. Maybe you want more than the 3 rounds here. In either case, it's absolutely easy to adjust, and it's something you can do to kind of make this as creative in your eye as possible. Okay? So here's some tips that, again, I felt like I could have put this into part 1, but I wanted to pause because there was so much that I packed into part 1 of this crochet along that I thought these tips really can go there for the absolute beginner, or even for those who are looking to brush up and broaden their crochet skills. But I'm going to put it here because really this is where we're getting started on the project, okay? So I've got some tips when you're making your granny squares, just some things to pause and really kind of consider, so that all of your granny squares can be successful and you can really feel like you are broadening your knowledge and skill, okay? So the first tip that I have is use stitch markers. Now, I say this because I feel like, maybe some of our more experienced crocheters, when you get more experience, you get so confident in your skill and your ability. And sometimes we forget things. Even sometimes I forget things and make mistakes because I feel like I've been doing this forever. I could make a granny square with my eyes closed. Yes, it is about making the granny square and doing that to the best of your ability, but it's also an exercise to help us go, wait, I can do this with my eyes closed. So let me focus on other things to learn and apply. And utilizing stitch markers on the top of every stitch of every round is really going to help you to do a few things in this particular pattern. One, it's helping you to mark the top of your stitch so you know where to join. Now that's kind of important because every round here starts with chains. So those chains are your stitch beginnings. And sometimes those can get a little smushed, or sometimes, they're kind of hard to read, or sometimes we may, instead of slip stitching into the top of our first chain stitch, we actually can kind of undershoot or overshoot, which can make our granny square joins look really mushed together or far too big. So again, it's just a gentle reminder that after you chain, place a stitch marker there into the top of your last chain that represents your stitch. And it's just a really good reminder of whenever you're complete with your round, that's where you join. So definitely use stitch markers on the top of your first stitch in every single round, and that will be a great little reminder for you. Next, before you slip stitch to join, because these are joined rounds, make sure that you count all of your stitches. Now, every single round in this pattern has an end stitch count. It tells you exactly how many double crochets you should have, how many chains you should have, and how many chain 3 spaces that you have. Now, those chain 3 spaces create those corners, and that way, even though we're working in the round, we're starting with this round circular thing because of where we're increasing our stitch counts with those chain spaces. That's what's transforming this into a square. And with every single round, we are increasing our stitch count. And so, again, it's just a gentle exercise to help make sure that you are counting all of your stitches and those counts do match the final stitches and end stitch count for that pattern. And it just gives you a little bit of confidence before you slip stitch to join that you followed the pattern correctly. So another thing that I wanted to note here is that there are so many different ways that a granny square can be executed. Literally, there's so many different ways. And I love every time I talk about granny squares in our community and I talk about making granny squares, I feel like I always learn one new way that people construct granny squares. For example, sometimes I've even seen people say that after every row is complete, they turn the fabric of their work. And so every round, so therefore making the fabric reversible. That way, maybe round 1 is facing and then you flip it and then round 2 is facing because you're working on the wrong side of round 1. It's just fascinating. I love it. However, for this particular challenge, we are working one very specific, very particular way of constructing a granny square. And in this way, we are moving the join every single round. The reason I created it this way is that it makes those joins and it makes those starting locations harder to spot. Because if you don't move your slip stitch join for every round, what you're going to have is this beautiful granny square, and then you're going to have this seam going in between 2 corners on one side. That's the way I learned how to make granny squares, and I know that a lot of people make granny squares that way, but I've never enjoyed that. And so I constructed this slip stitch move as you start every single round because it just helps to eliminate that very prominent seam and join. So as you're following the pattern, if it doesn't make sense for some reason in the written instructions, remember everyone, in your crochet membership for this challenge, we have referenced a video tutorial. That way you can see these instructions in action. We also have a chart. Again, that way so you can see a snapshot of this pattern. You can read that chart and you can see where those slip stitch joins are so that you can really understand why we're moving it and where we're starting. So that's definitely a different aspect of this that I really wanted to point out. Next is about changing color. Now, if you're really confident and really familiar with changing color, then maybe I would just say to you, think about the method in which you're changing color, and if you want to utilize a different method to change color in this particular pattern. For example, you can change color by completing the last stitch, whatever the last motion is in your last stitch, complete that with your new color. So incorporate that new color to complete your last stitch. That's one way to do it. Or you can complete your round with your current color, fasten off that color completely, and then do a standing stitch with your new color. Maybe that's how you incorporate your new color here. So again, you can find a few different color change methods in your learning path. So definitely go back and review some of those to maybe just try different color changing methods and techniques to see what's going to work best for the fabric that you're creating for this specific granny square, because sometimes we like certain color change methods for some fabrics, but not others. So see what's going to work best for this. And last but not least, I don't know if I said this in part 1, but it's definitely something that you're going to have to pay attention to. And I think that it's something you really have to be conscious of as you're doing so that you do it correctly. And that is because we're creating these granny squares and we're joining our current granny square to the last, you want to make sure that the right side of all fabrics are facing the right side. Now, if you're unfamiliar with right side versus wrong side or back side, just know that as you're creating your work, the stitches that you create are creating fabric. And as you're creating them and looking at them, that is the right side of your fabric. So whatever you can't see as you're creating stitches, that's behind you because you can't see it, that's the back side of your work. That's the wrong side of this. Now, some people may go, well, I like the back side better, or it doesn't matter, you know. If you like the back side or you like the wrong side better as you're displaying it, you do whatever you think looks best in your home. That is absolutely up to you. But for the purposes of building our crochet knowledge and skill, just know that there is a right side to fabric and stitches. There is a wrong side to fabric and stitches. And this particular pattern definitely has a right side and a back side. So as you're creating those squares, just keep that in mind. And that way, when you're paying attention to the join as you go method, when you're paying attention to your stitch counts, there's lots of other things that you're doing. So it's a good idea to pause and look at, wait, before I join this, are these both facing the right side? So that's a final note that I have for you. All right, everyone, those are all of the different key points that I wanted to give in part 2 of this Crochet Along Challenge. And now I see a lot of you guys are here. I see a lot of comments, so I'm going to go through and read all of those again. If you're watching live, make this a conversation, and let me know if you have any questions, comments, feedback, okay? I was chatting with Jace before we went live, and Jace says, we were going back and forth again before I hit that live button. Jace said, I completed my 3 square swatch, that was the homework from part 1, last night and really like it. I learned I need to make my squares bigger, more solid rounds, if I want it to be a table runner. See, and that was, I'm so glad, Jace, that you took time to kind of, follow that advice I gave for the homework, do this before you actually dive into making the project, because there's so many different things to learn and try and apply before you start thinking about making a finished project. So that's why this is such a fun project to try, because it packs in so many different learning objectives. So I'm glad that you felt that way. Jace also said, I learned that my Jago tension changes, like you said, so I need to keep an eye on that. Yeah. So join as you go is a new method. You're using your crochet hook. So, it does become part of your fabric. So if you're not familiar with that join as you go method, that's why I said, hey, pause before you start making your table runner, make a few granny squares, try out that join as you go, because it's only going to help you get familiar with how to construct that, but also get some uniformity in what it looks like. And that way your entire table runner won't start out by going, yeah, that's where I start. You see, I didn't really know what I was figuring out the join as you go. And then your last squares are like, yeah, these are perfect. So you want to practice first, and then when you start to make your project, the entire thing will look practiced. So Jace, I'm so glad you shared that. Linda Atwood is here. Hello, Linda. Laura Strickland is watching from Georgia. Thank you for chiming in. Mary Lou is here from Arizona. Frances is here from New Jersey. Frances, it is always so good to see your face. She says, I had sent a message. Did you get it? Yeah, Frances, I was chatting with you on Facebook. Let me know where you sent the message. I don't think I saw a message from you, but if you emailed us, then we will get right back to you. Laura does check our email, and she gets back to all of our members. So if you do need to contact us, you can always send us an email, support@AmericanCrochetAssociation.org, and Frances will get back to you as soon as we hear from you. Amy McKeever is here. Amy, good to see your face. Hello from Pennsylvania. You've got a long YouTube name that I don't know if I can pronounce. Francis. All right, she's asking about her membership. Yes, if you have any questions about your membership, if you have any questions about that, definitely send us an email and we will get to you as soon as we hear from you. Hello again, Ninja Bunny from New York. So good to see you. Jennifer says, where is part 1? Yes, so I have linked it to this video. I'm trying to put all of our crochet along information just in one part in your crochet membership. So your crochet membership, American Crochet Association members, it does give you, there is a section there that that just says March Crochet Along, and that's where you'll see everything pertaining to this. I have linked that to this video. So if you're a member, all you have to do is hit that link and it will take you to that that part, okay? But the end, and that includes all of these videos that I'm making as well. The pattern, where to get the pattern, the different parts, everything that you need. Jennifer, you should be able to find it there. And if you have, again, if you have any questions, issues with your crochet membership, or if you can't find anything, we're just an email away. James DeLong is here. Hello, James. James is checking in from Tampa. James, I've been thinking about you all week. I'm excited to reach out to you and connect again. So thank you for chiming in. It's things like this crochet along that I didn't get right back to you, but I'm really excited to follow up with you. James is an exciting member of our American Crochet Association community, and we were chatting about just, you know, community and crochet, and so I'm really excited to follow up with you, James. Thank you for being here. Brenda Allison is here. Brenda, good morning. I'm so happy to see your face here. Thank you for checking in. I also have YouTube member. I'm just going to say I can't pronounce it, so I'm just going to read it out. I'm so sorry. E.D. Rowley 1. I don't know. I'm sorry. I know E.D. Rowley 1 isn't your name. That's why it's hard for me. It's a username. Says, I made a swatch yesterday to coordinate the colors I wanted. I will need to crochet an extra round or two for the dimension I want. I'm using a 4-weight cotton. I'm so glad that you said that, because that makes me want to say that as you're following this pattern, this is absolutely a pattern that you can get creative with. While this pattern only has a few rounds indicated, you can make as many rounds as you want here. So if you want your squares, your joining squares, to be smaller, just omit rounds. If you want it to be larger, the instructions do tell you at, you know, as you're adding rounds, you should increase by this many stitches per round. You can make these as large or as small as you want. So again, if you need extra help with that or anything, we have a video tutorial. We've got the diagram that you can look at. We've got the pattern instructions. So those tools together should absolutely help you to size these as you want. So I'm really excited to see just how creative you guys get with these squares. Are you going to follow it exactly? Are you going to make the exact dimension that we have? Are you going to make it smaller? Are you going to make it larger? I'm really excited to see. As I was looking through the projects that you guys have posted so far, is there a link in the video description? If I didn't post a link to this, I'm definitely going to post it now. Here, I'm going to post it in the comments so you guys can go back and watch that after the live. But again, in the show notes for this, I do have a link to the pattern, so you guys can, you know, at least get to the pattern. But the pattern, there has projects linked to it as well, so you guys can already see the different projects that are listed. I see 19 projects listed so far. Some of those are from the pattern testers. Some of these are from all of you following this crochet along challenge. So what I wanted to say is, if you haven't started any of this project yet and you feel like, what's everybody else doing? This is an excellent tool to go and use so you can see what yarns people are using, how people are incorporating color. There's so many different ways to incorporate color. So you can just kind of, you know, get a glance at that. And I do want to say, there are a few of you guys who followed the homework, who made that swatch from the first crochet along and posted your project. So if you want some inspiration, if you want to feel a little encouraged, if you want to see what others are doing, definitely check out the projects. And I do want to give a shout out to one of our members, because she followed part 1 and said, you know what, Selena, you said not to use color that was too busy. She said, but I did it anyway, but I did it in this really specific way. And now I have to go back and just kind of say, when I said, be careful about color, again, you do whatever you want to do that makes your heart happy, because it is your crochet project and nobody can tell you that the colors you chose are wrong, because it's all about what you like. However, when I said, as you're choosing color, a busier color or too many colors might hide your fabric. When I said that, I really just want to make sure that as you're putting all of this work into this stitch pattern, I don't want all of that hard work in these granny squares. I don't want it to be lost that you are creating granny squares, that you are creating this intricate fabric of these squares within squares. So I don't want that to be lost. And that's why I said, think about color. Now, let me go back to this one member. This one member used lots of color, but she, or he, I'm so sorry. It's Kade, Kaydebra Colbert. Kade. So again, username. I'm not sure if it's a name pushed. I'm terrible when it comes to usernames. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, this member, and you guys will just have to go and look at the projects. I'm not doing this justice. I'm not using my fancy software where I can share my screen and all that. So sorry, guys. I'll have to remember that for next time. So the granny square, right, is diagonally has a color A and B diagonally. So this is the square. So this side is solid. This side is variegated, right? And the variegated side has lots of color and it's splashed. Now, not only is this user creating these squares this way, but the variegated sides are touching. So it completely changes the look of this design and it looks wicked awesome. So this user said, you know, I'm doing this in this specific way because I'm going to make a wall hanging. Love it. So does this absolutely have to be a table runner? As I said in part 1, you guys can get really creative with this. And I even specifically said, if you want to make a wall hanging, that would be cool. And that's what this user is doing. Again, I also said, I'd love to see somebody make this in some really tiny thread and make a bookmark. So again, that can be an exercise in creativity as well. So I can't wait to see what you guys choose. All right, who else is here? Let's see. Yours truly by Rose is checking in from Missouri. Good to see you. E.D. Rowley, LOL. You said my name correctly. Okay. Your username. I'm so glad. Jay says, sorry, I need to update my Ravelry project. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Ravelry projects are there for a way. They do a few things. They help you to kind of track your crochet resume, all the things that you're making, the yarn you use, the pattern, the size, that, it's a virtual notebook for every project that you make. And what I love about these projects is that they directly link to the pattern. So you can always see the original source and you can see everything that everyone's doing with that, right? So that's why we encourage utilizing the project feature so much. So definitely do that. I will say as well, if you're not familiar or not used to creating projects, we've got a video tutorial for that, crochet members. So you can definitely see how to do it and you can double check if you've done it correctly. It's just a few simple steps. So don't feel intimidated if you've never done it before. And also I will say, because this was a great question posted in our membership area, every project that you create should get its own project space. So let's say you make 10 of these. It's not one project, it's 10 different projects, okay? And the reason I say that is that now if you've made 10 of these and they're all exactly the same, use the same yarn, and they're the same size, you did the same color application, yeah, I guess maybe you can do one project and just note that you've done it 10 times. However, I would still say make 10 different projects because then you can see that you've made 10 of them, right? But really the project, you should create a project for every individual specific project that you make, because again, that's just going to help you see, Yeah, I made that one with this yarn in these colors, and then I made that one in this yarn in these colors, but I used this hook, and that one was that size, and that one was that size. So it really just, again, it helps you provide all the specific details for your specific project. So definitely do that. All right. The last comment that I see here is from Francis of New Jersey. Francis says, I have my yarn picked, but want to surprise you. Oh, you are just going to keep it on the down low, aren't you? She says, I will resend my message as an email. Oh, okay. So maybe you messaged us, but maybe we just haven't seen it yet. So yeah, always send us an email. And here, I will add our email address in the comments here. It's very long. Long name, amazing results. Support at AmericanCrochetAssociation.org. So definitely send us an email. And Laura, she always works hard behind the scenes to make sure that all of our members are just happy and having a great experience. And she answers those emails when she gets them, okay? All right, everyone. So that's all I have for part 2 of this crochet along today. Please, guys, let's continue making this a conversation. So questions, comments, feedback, anything that you have like that, just keep us posted. Okay. We're always just an email away. As you're following this crochet along, remember to post your projects. Again, we've got all the resources on how to do that within our crochet membership. So log in, take a peek. It tells you everything that you need to know. And if you have any questions from there, just let me know. All right, guys. So that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. Part 2 of the Granny Square Table Runner Crochet Along. Remember, guys, American Crochet Association memberships help us to build courses, workshops, and training programs that support the crochet community. And they help us to host fun episodes and live chats like this one. You guys can learn more about our American Crochet Association membership and get started today when you click on the link in the show notes section right now. Thanks, guys, for joining. Peace, love, crochet. See you next time.